Saboteur. As always, I am subject, and we have Robert. What's wrong with my camera? We have
That is not my
Robert.
middle name.
What is wrong with my camera? Wild. And we're here
Hello.
to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. Robert, what is the title of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1?
The title of episode 1 is Future Days, which is a little reference to the game, and what may surprise you
Days of Future
is
Past?
that what may surprise you is that song is not in this episode in any capacity, which was a bit of a surprise for me. But will it show up
There
later?
was a
We
couple
shall
of
see.
things that are missing here that I was surprised at with how much is here. Uh,
For sure.
so we were kind of right. Like they started with all the flashback stuff, with a
So,
couple of all of the flashback stuff from Jackson,
the Jacksons, but yes.
with a couple of notable things that are missing that I now can't tell if just aren't gonna be here or are coming later. But there's one specifically that's weird if they're gonna do it later because there's a shot that sets it up, but then they don't do that. Um, so you said you took notes. I managed to watch this twice, just
Ooh, okay, cool.
hammering my thoughts. What were your overall impressions?
Yeah, before we get in the weeds of it, I think we'll just say we'll start with general, quick, spoiler-free thoughts if we liked it or didn't like it, and then when we go full spoilers for context, we have both played the game, The Last of Us Part Two, in which this is based, and I'm sure spoilers that will happen later in the game will come up in our discussion. So if you're just watching the show, but don't know the games or what's coming, don't watch the whole thing. Just
What he said.
yeah. But in terms of my impressions, I'm a big fan of the show. I like season one a lot. These 2 years just flew by for me getting here. And my thoughts on episode one are I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was very solid, a lot of setup. It's really taking its time, which I appreciated. I've got a few questions. I've got a few things few choices I'm not crazy about yet that I think you've already alluded to. For me, this was like an 8 out of 10 episode, and for other, I've got some criticisms, and for other people, it's going to be, oh, well, that was disappointing. I wanted something a lot bigger, like the season one premiere, like the series premiere. And for me, that was actually a positive. I was actually worried going in that we were going to start too big. So in terms of some major events that we know are coming, I actually like that we're taking our time, and looks like some of that stuff may come at episode two, which I personally prefer. I'm glad this wasn't another, oh, we gotta top the pilot, let's do another hour and a half, like epic, huge episode. I like that this was more of a setup, just easing us back into it episode. So not phenomenal. I wouldn't say it knocked my socks off, but boy, elements of it did. There are things in here that I thought they absolutely nailed from in terms of production and casting, and there are scenes in here I thought were absolutely fantastic. So personally, I'm on board. I liked it. Definitely strap in for what may be coming in episode two. But so far, I think it's solid. I'm personally satisfied with where we're starting.
I'm also
How's say you?
satisfied. I would give it a 7. I liked my best things were Pedro and Dina. I thought they killed it this episode. Um, I liked a lot of the setup. I hope that this is our only setup episode because now we only have 6 episodes left.
Mhm.
I don't know where they plan to end this, but you didn't really do a lot to progress. Setup is fine, but part of the problem a lot of people, including me, had was season 1 did a lot of the setup correctly, and then didn't do any of the payoff or hardly any payoff. And I'm hoping we're not going to have that here, especially since we're splitting this game up into multiple seasons, because there is no way in hell you're covering this entire game this season based on this episode.
No, and we know for a fact that they're not. So I'm not
Uh,
personally worried about that.
best shot or best scene for me was the opening, which is exclusive to the show. I really liked that with Abby.
Oh, interesting.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah. So spoilers, I guess. Spoiler alert.
So we're going
Uh,
full into spoilers now. That I didn't consider that a spoiler because it's the first frame of the episode.
sure.
But going forward, we will be completely spoiling the show. as well as the game to compare moments and things that either we really liked or weren't sure about. And I'll start like, yes, that was my favorite thing just because I think that is something you needed in the game. Because this Abby is much more vengeance driven out the
Mhm.
gate. It's not a change in motivation, it's making motivation clearer. She's not obsessed to the degree in the game that she is in the show. Um, but I also really liked getting to see Joel and Dinah interact. We also kind of gave Dina all of Ellie's stuff, which was weird.
Some of it. I don't know. I
But
like.
I have other things to say about Ellie. We'll get there because oh boy. What do you have first written down, Robert?
Well, since thankfully I've got most of these in somewhat chronological order. So yeah, the opening shot. Actually, before we cut to the Abby stuff, we pick up literally at the end of season one with that final conversation between Joel and Ellie. But then we actually see her walk to Jackson, and I didn't love the way that was edited. I actually thought it was kind of awkward. But what's cool about it is when Ellie does turn and we actually see her walking to Jackson. That was all shot at the end of season one because they were when they made that season one finale, they were actually debating like, do we cut this off the same place we do in the game? Do we let it go longer? And I think they made the right call in cutting it where they did. So it is cool just to get those few extra seconds of footage. But as for the Abby scene, it's really just cool as a fan of the game when you can just spot and recognize who each person is supposed to be.
Did you have some uncanny with Owen? I don't know. He just looks off to me.
I thought he looked fine. Do you think he looks older than the game version?
Yeah, and I think it's the beard.
Yeah, and he's got a little scruff
And it doesn't
in
help
the
that this
game.
Abby looks younger.
Hmm. Yeah, time is but
I
an
don't know. It's just
illusion.
weird.
Yeah. Well, and the Caitlin Deaver as Abby, some people are still upset with that casting because she's not buff enough like the game version. And do I wish she bulked up a little more? Yeah, but in just that one scene, she communicates so much of the hate and pain that character goes through that I don't know about you. I was sold pretty quickly. I
No,
was like, yep, that's Abby.
I, I'm
That's
excited. Now,
that's
can
just
she
the
carry an
personality.
entire season on her own? I don't know. I'm down to
Mhm.
find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was great. Like the setup here, and for some people, that's gonna throw them off if you know the game. Like, oh, are they showing their hand too early? With her motivation and backstory, especially if we end this season on a cliffhanger, you cannot make the TV audience wait 2 more years just to know what the hell her motivation is,
Yeah, no.
and
This is a
why she's
different.
going after these people.
The part two is a game that you do have to change for the medium, whereas I don't feel like you needed to change much with part one, even though they did. So a lot
Yeah,
of that
we're
stuff is
moving a
smart.
lot of pieces around, like we predicted.
This is such a weird premiere to talk about because there's a lot of scenes where I'm like, yep, that's just straight from the game. And then there's other scenes where I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what is this?
um, yeah, but like I said, I like the Abby setup, and I also think this premiere does a pretty good job of setting up stuff and also making us ask questions to things that'll pay off later. And as far as Abby's character specifically goes, though, I think we get just enough context while there's still more to be revealed later. Like, you understand, okay, she's a Firefly, somebody very specific who was very close to her was killed by Joel. Like, you get that, but you don't get everything. Like, there is clearly still more to elaborate on later, and I think this premiere mostly does that balance pretty well.
That's up her eventual sadism of no, I want to do this slow.
Mhm. And if you're a TV audience and you don't know what's coming, that the tension is like, is she gonna succeed? Is she not? Are they gonna stop her? Where's that gonna go? You don't know. And then we bookend it like we predicted. At the very end, of course, we tease her again, like, "Yep, that's coming." So how's that gonna go? Yeah, watch to find out.
Um, did you find it weird that we're still working on Jackson? 'Cause in the game, I got the sense it was complete, like it was done by season two or by part two.
It's not that they're still working on it, it's that they're expanding it, and that's the issues they're running into because now they're bringing in more people than they can handle, and I thought that was interesting. And apparently a lot of that stuff with Jackson, like how that community functions and operates, is stuff they wanted to explore more in the games and just didn't have the time for pacing reasons. And I did it in school because before we in our commentaries we talked about like how the show goes more into Joel's job and being into construction and stuff. So that stuff I really liked, how he's kind of what his role is in this community now. Like, but he's not part of the council. That makes sense to me. But he's still a clearly very important pillar of this community. So most of that stuff I was very much into.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I was like, this is weird. Um, I liked. I still don't understand the need for Tommy to have a kid now, but I liked seeing Uncle Joel. Um,
Yeah, no, I thought that was a cute scene.
the real question is, what the hell happened to Zeke? Oh, fuck, what is his name? Tommy Chong. Uh, Ezekiel? No,
Eugene,
Eugene. That's it. What happened to him in this continuity? Now I need to know.
that's the big change that threw me for a loop that I don't know how to feel about yet. I just got to see where it goes because similar to the game, I mean, of course, in the game we never meet Eugene, but he's somebody who's died off screen, who these characters knew, but in the game died presumably from natural causes. In the show, we're told that
It's
Joel
not
killed him.
presumably Ellie or Dana straight up say he had a heart attack.
Okay, yeah, I didn't remember if it was like a stroke or something, but yeah, heart attack. Okay, so now we're told, oh, Joel killed him. So presumably, right? I'm just thinking, like, oh, he got infected and Joel had to put him
Well,
down.
not only
That,
that, because the psychiatrist who turns out to be Eugene's wife says, "I know you had to do it. It's how you
yes,
did it." What does that mean?
right. Yeah, that's definitely. I don't know how to feel about this yet, but I thought her performance was great. I thought their chemistry together was great. Again, it was just like, wow, this is more loaded of a conversation than I was expecting, and maybe too many questions up front. But I'm more wait and see, like how those flashbacks will
He's
pan out.
so good. This does kind of compound on that. I still don't like how soft this TV Joel is. Game Joel didn't give a fuck. If she wanted to talk, they talk. If not, he went about his business. I don't know. It's fine. It's whatever. I'll deal with it.
That's not entirely true. We talked to Tommy, but the we should talk about that. The biggest omission from this episode is that whole opening with Joel and Tommy from the game, which I really missed here. And now it's just a question of, are we going to get that in a flashback later? Does Tommy know everything that happened? We just don't know
I
yet.
I think he
Uh,
does because he knows that she's immune.
yeah, but he found that out in season one.
Oh, okay.
Like same with the game.
That,
Uh,
that's right.
so I was guessing that was going to be one of your big hangups was that we lose so much of that opening. If you
No,
want to
I
go
didn't. I
there.
didn't super notice it. I guess I'll just go to my big hang up, which is just Ellie in general. She is terrible. Where
Interesting.
is Ellie? Ellie is not a petulant child that throws a fit to get her way anytime she doesn't get what she wants. At
She
least
was
by part
supposed to.
two. Not in part two. The only
Okay,
time that she
so
ever disobeys a direct order or goes against the grain is to get personal revenge when Joel dies. This Ellie
mm,
frequently throws hissy fits when she doesn't get what she wants and puts Dina in danger because she wants to goof off. When they're doing that like silent communication thing, so I was like, oh, this is cool, we're sneaking around communicating. And then Ellie starts making all these weird knife gestures that don't mean anything. I'm like, what the fuck are
oh,
we
I did.
doing? You're in the middle of the fucking apocalypse on patrol. Act like a fucking adult.
She's a teenager. So they've really amped up her teenage angst. However, I was mostly fine with that because the context of where we meet her is very different than the context of where we meet her at the start of part two. It's easy to forget that when part two starts, when we do that time jump, she's already had her heart to heart with Joel. and she's kind of mellowed out that next day. In the context of this premiere, they haven't had that yet. So we do get glimpses of that angsty Ellie in the game. That stuff's just mostly off screen. We're not living with it as much, but we do see that a bit when she's on patrol later, and then of course when she finds out the big thing that happened, and then when we get to the New Year's Eve party, which I thought was phenomenal in this phenomenal recreation, like that is like 1-to-1 how it plays out
The New
in the
Year's
game.
party is phenomenal. The problem is then we don't do the conversation. I think that is a huge missed opportunity.
Oh, I think the conversation's coming later. I think
But
they're
you already
proceeding
did the
forward.
setup. Like
Well, we got
it
the
was.
setup here. I think we're getting that payoff later because we know more flashbacks are coming.
Yeah, but I think if the way that they did this, you need that because Ellie looks really bad in this episode.
I didn't have that, and then again in the next episode, I
And,
obviously
and even in the
whole world's
game,
gonna get turned upside down.
when she's lashing out because she thinks she knows Joel is hiding something, she doesn't run around screeching that she's immune to
See,
make
that I thought was
to
funny.
make
I
Tommy
was just like,
uncomfortable.
yeah, they're out in the middle of nowhere. I thought it was funny. I
Okay,
didn't.
but Ellie wouldn't do that.
Hmm,
Like that is directly
maybe.
contradictory to her character.
I mean, she eventually tells Dina.
Yeah, because she has no choice.
Well, not necessarily. The first time she tells her, it's just kind of a moment of vulnerability and openness. Dina
Yeah,
just doesn't believe her at
but
first.
she also knew she wouldn't believe her. I'm talking about when she actually is forced to confess it. It's because she has no choice, or Dina's going to die.
Hmm.
Ellie
Yeah,
in
but
the game is also a serious patroller. She takes this stuff seriously. Even when she's lashing out, she doesn't go around putting people in casual danger.
her and Dina go to that supermarket when they know they're not supposed to. Again, the context is a little different here, but it plays out very similarly
What do you mean they're
to the
not
game
supposed to?
version.
That's on their in the game. That's on their patrol.
Hmm. Yeah, but I think they're supposed to go back and report it, not clear out the. I don't know. I should play it again
No, because in the
and get
game
misremembering that.
they have to go to each checkpoint and report that it's cleared and clear out any infected unless it's overwhelming like a horde. So they're clearing the grocery store because it's on their patrol. Here, they just want to run off and play hero. So they
Mm-hmm.
run off despite their commanding officer's order, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie gets bitten again. What if that'd been Dina?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, they're playing up the angst, but also her character is at a place where her purpose has been taken away from her, and she still feels invincible. I get what you're saying about her putting Dina in danger. I just don't think it's that different in the game, but I don't know. That stuff just didn't bother me like it did you. And it's a big theme with Ellie in this episode though that they're zeroing in on throughout is like she really wants to prove that she doesn't need Joel. She really wants to prove that she can handle things on her own. And again, that's teen ink stuff that played very natural to me. Like, I'm an adult, but you're also kind of not. And of course, her whole world is gonna get flipped in the next episode. So I get where we're going. One scene early on that I really liked was the training scene where we're establishing that she's learning how to fight, learning different moves that we, didn't see her doing in
See,
season one.
that was the first thing. I was like, oh no. She almost breaks that guy's arm for no reason.
It's because she zones out. It's like she's really into violence. Like that's just a little hint at what's to come. Of Ellie has that dark side, and what makes her different from Joel is she likes the violence. She likes fights. She wants to engage in conflict, and yeah, that's a moment where she just kind of zones out, and she says, "Sorry, I was in the moment."
That's never how I've read Ellie's character. The only reason in part two that she does anything that she does is to get revenge on Joel. In the first game, every time the two canonical times, because you have to kind of separate the gameplay, that she kills someone, she's almost sick over it.
That's only really the first one, and then when the David stuff happens, that's traumatizing for a whole other reason. But in the game though, like she is constantly pushing to go on patrols and killing. Like that's what she likes doing. She likes killing clickers. She likes killing
Well, but
infected.
there's a difference between
Uh,
killing clickers and infected and hurting people.
mhm.
The Ellie in the game doesn't like to hurt people unless she
it,
has to.
it depends. I say it depends on the situation. But what I liked about that scene though was again though it did show yeah she's learned how to fight and is very capable, but they still tell her no he pulled his punch. He could have knocked you out if he was really trying to. So before you get worked up about oh Mary Sue, it's like no, they do address that and that pisses Ellie off and she tells Jesse don't do that again and that's very Ellie because where her character is at this point is I don't want people saving me. I don't want people I don't want to be protected. I want to take care of things on my own. I don't like to be saved because in her mind at this point in her character when Joel saved her that's like the worst thing he's ever done to her. So that's a big complex she's dealing with right now is and the big thing that really pisses her off though is the fact that that happened behind her back. Is she can't stand being lied to or messed with. Like she thought that was a genuine honest fight and then it wasn't and that pissed her off. Like that all rang very true for me. And then Jesse
I
I thought
mean,
was very
I didn't mind her
intense and I thought
reaction
their
to
banter
that.
together was good.
Where she loses me is the like I didn't necessarily love that she was purposely hurting that guy, but that's whatever. I liked her reaction, like, "Oh, don't hold back for my case." But no, you lose me when she starts screeching to anyone who will listen. What if somebody had been out there listening?
Yeah.
Ellie in the games, and I will continue on this because there is a set characterization for Ellie, and when you change it, you are no longer adapting the character that I care about.
Okay.
Would not start screaming, "Oh, I'm infected" to anyone that'll listen. Yeah, I'm sorry your feelings got hurt because you were on gate duty. Everyone else has to do it. Am I supposed to feel bad for her?
Again, it's just typical teenage stuff.
But she's not a typical teenager.
Well, she isn't and she isn't. You know, the silent treatment stuff with Joel, you know, is from the game. We just moved that, or we're seeing more of that earlier on. That all
Yeah,
was
that
fine. I
stuff
did.
was fine. It's just and then we play it like she's game Ellie because when we do the dance scene, we do it verbatim, which was good. But Dina's like, "Oh, Ellie, they should be terrified of you." And I'm like, "Why? Because she throws a temper tantrum?"
No, that's not how I heard that scene.
No, I know what they want me to read is because she's dangerous. The problem is that the only thing that she's done in this episode is throw a temper tantrum. Where's the
That's
Ellie that
acceptable.
was professional and like helped the community?
She's just very lost right now. You know, her purpose was taken away from her, and we're gonna dive deeper into that over the course of the season.
Yeah,
And like I
so is
said,
part two's Ellie.
and like I said, though, we start with her in a very different place in part two because her and Joel have already had that heart to heart. She's already mellowed out a bit. One example where they're paying attention to those changes is in the game. Ellie early on suggests like, I might invite Joel over for a movie. You know, extending that olive branch. You know, taking an extra step. And in the show, she's not there yet. So we flip it. It's Dina who says, "Hey, I might watch a movie with Joel. You want to join us?" Because we're now exploring that dynamic and her relationship to Joel, which I think is interesting.
Do you feel like
So,
maybe we're not going to get that conversation just the way this episode ended?
like the final conversation with Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely think we do.
I just don't
So,
know when you do it because we've already set up the infected are in the community. Abby's there.
so okay, so we get that scene near the end. We're jumping around a lot, but that's fine. We get that scene near the end where Joel's with the guitar. He sees Ellie, and then she walks right past him. I think somewhere near the end of the season, we're going to come back to that scene, and then we're going to see Ellie walk back, and then her and Joel will have that heart to heart. I think we're going to get that
And
scene
why did
probably
you
at the
do
end of
the
the season.
setup if it's going to be a flashback for later? That's irritating.
It's not for me. It's a setup. It'll be paid off later.
I mean,
Again, it's doing a similar thing the game did, where they're going to make you think, oh fuck, like he's gonna die and they were on bad terms and that sucks. Like that's oh god. And then over the course of the season, I think we're gonna get a bit more of that context of the relationship. Again, very similar to how the game is structured. So they tease that moment, but I do think we're gonna pay it off later.
Yeah, but the problem, I guess the problem is that if you're gonna do that, don't tease it. Just do it. It doesn't have to be now. That's fine. If you want to do it at the end of the season, that's fine. But don't do fucking teases. That would be like in the game if they showed her walk up to the house, look at him, and then it just cut. And then you went and did something else for 10 hours or whatever. And then it was like, hey, remember this scene from 10 hours ago? Well, now we're actually going to show you what really happened.
And it's not that dissimilar. You don't get a lot of Joel early on in that game, and then he dies, and then over the course of that game, you get this whole other story with those flashbacks. So
Because I'm pretty
so
sure
far
we're
I'm
going to get the
fine with it.
birthday flashback next
Yeah, I think that'll be 2 or 3.
I didn't watch any promotions or anything for next week, so I don't know.
Well, sure. And it wasn't. Yeah, it's one of those HBO things where it's not next week on The Last of Us; it's this season on The Last of Us. So it's just a whole.
That's
bunch
also
of
fucking annoying.
Who knows? Yeah, it's fine. So, like I said, I was more fine with angsty Ellie than you were, just because the where we meet her in the show is different than where we meet her at the start of that second game. I get where you're coming from, but I still thought her performance was great.
She's doing good. I am kind of having that thing I was afraid of. Yeah, she's decent at the action. She is not intimidating. Like her face is just. It's like, oh, that's adorable. You think you're scary.
No, but some of that they're playing up though. And I think that works. Like when she sees the stalker and is like, run at me. Like she's trying to be tough. She wants so much to be like Joel and be tough. And to some degree, you can see how phony or what a face that is. And that I think is fine. Speaking of which, though, one thing you were asking,
we got the stalkers.
We got the stalker. And that was
awesome. Okay. So I do have a question. So the idea is that the stalker is a new kind of evolved form of the infected, or at least that's what they think. But isn't the stalker in the game supposed to be like a halfway point between a runner and a loaded or a clicker?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because it's again, it makes me want to play those games again because that's kind of what they are in the first game, but then by the second game, stalkers like they are kind of a different thing because but it's just not till we get to Seattle and they behave very differently, like what we see in this episode where you get one in your sights and then it ducks away and hides and you're like, fuck, like you got to chase them down or let them sneak up on you. So that is a case where they're kind of in the first game, like you said, as like a between, like an in between, but then in the second game they do become something kind of different. So I'm fine with how they're, and again, I want to say there is a line, or it's like a journal entry or something where she's like, "Well, that was different," but I don't remember like an open discussion about it. But yeah, stalkers are a little different in the second game.
Where she's also really lucky that her immunity lasts multiple bites. She'd be fucked.
It's in the second game.
I'm not criticizing that as a show plot hole. I am criticizing that as she had no idea what would happen. She's lucky it works that way, or she'd be dead because once again she did something stupid and got bit for it.
Well,
because
she's
apparently she learned
invincible.
Okay, but the problem is that we've already been here. She should have learned this from the Riley issue. Mm-hmm. She hasn't hasn't learned anything.
I don't think she's as outwardly putting Dina in danger as much as you. I mean, when she fell through the floor, she obviously didn't see that coming. Okay, and
so rewind to the beginning of that scene. They come up to this grocery store. After Dina and Ellie have ran off ahead from their patrol group, mind you. After we're told, well, people look up to these two. I can't imagine why, because they're insane.
Because they're cool. Because they're fun.
And then Dina's like, hey, let's go in the grocery store where there could be multiple infected. And Ellie's just like, yeah, why not? What's the worst that could happen? instead of being the responsible one. Because what makes their dynamic in the game cool is that Ellie is burned with all this stuff and is kind of weighed down by her life, and Dina is this like light-hearted influence. Here,
Mhm.
they're just both idiots, and they act like idiots.
Yeah, they're angsty teens.
But the problem is, you keep saying that, but I've seen teenager Ellie. This isn't teenager Ellie. This is, well, we gotta find some way to draw out conflict.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, a 14-year-old and a 19-year-old really isn't that different, at least in most cases. It
A
just depends
19-year-old that's
on
been
the
through what
situation.
she's been through would be different.
But she's in a very reckless, angsty stage, and again, like she feels invincible. She feels invincible. She doesn't care, and also when her and Dina are in the grocery store, like Ellie's still the one who takes out the clicker. Dina's hanging back.
No, Dina
So
just goes
yeah,
down the other hallway.
yeah, I
Because
didn't
remember,
watch that.
they're both at a hallway and they're both planning to go down. Because I think the idea is there's multiple clickers, and they were each going to take one out.
Okay, and Dina just took one out off screen. Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, but still,
Did you
she's
watch the
capable.
episode, Robert?
But yeah, another issue you had with season one that I think we've immediately addressed with this first episode that I liked a lot is you do get more infected. I thought we had a quality amount of infected in this episode, especially knowing with what's coming later. Like the scene where she's hunting with Tommy, that comes way later in the game in a different flashback, and I was fine with moving that up
That's
here,
fine. That's
seeing them
whatever.
pick off clickers. So, in terms of infected, I was satisfied with how they were used in this episode.
I won't
Um,
hold my breath because it wasn't. The pilot was for the first season was fine too. We'll see how it is by episode like 5.
sure.
Because they have a tendency to blow their load in one episode and then have nothing for the next 4 or 5 episodes.
That's not how it went. But
They blew their load in episode 5 with the bloater and all the runners
I mean,
and the
that's
clicker,
their biggest spectacle episode, but
and then they
there's
had
so much
nothing for the
meaty
next
drama.
3 episodes.
I disagree. I thought the stuff with David was great, but we've already talked about
I'm
that.
talking
So.
about just infected. I'm not talking about plot, writing,
And
or anything.
as I have said ad nauseum, I agree that a few more encounters with infected could
I
have
know.
happened in the back half of that season.
I'm not arguing whether there should have been. I'm saying that's why I'm not holding my breath because they blew their load on one key scene, and then they don't have anything for the next few because they blew all their money. Unless maybe this season's a
And
little more expensive. I couldn't
and
tell.
and this season I think looks more expensive than one. I'm pretty impressed with the scale in the production so far, and I also understand that a TV show budget isn't going to have the budget behind it that the AAA title games had. There are limitations with TV that you don't have with games, and vice versa. But an HBO television is going to make a fraction of a profit that the games are going to make. So I understand that they're not going to get the same amount of resources. And again, it's different doing that stuff in live action with real sets and real locations. You got to choose. You got to pick your battles. And so far, I'm pretty impressed with
And
where
I
they're using the
understand
media.
that. That's why I think they should, scatter it out across the season instead of it's like
Yeah, and we'll see how the rest of it. But again, the David stuff is so good. I didn't care. But
David
we've
is
already
good.
talked about those episodes. And
This is
like I
actually
said,
our secret second commentary, folks. I didn't know if you know that.
yeah, and I know for sure, just based on trailers, that there's at least going to be 2 pretty massive episodes involving infected, and include next episode most likely. So again, big positive I had with this episode was just it took its time. It's mostly set up, and then next episode is when shit's really going to hit the fan, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
good. I would be a lot more optimistic if they gave me an actual trailer so I knew what I was in for, but that's fine.
yeah. So what do we got next?
I kind of derailed us. That's my bad.
It's fine. Yeah, we talked about Eugene or where that might go. That'll definitely be a flashback later. One scene with Ellie that I liked, but also like I thought Ellie and Dina's chemistry was just so good. I thought those actors were fantastic. Isabella Merced, I think is wonderful as Dina
I
because
liked
Dina's
Dina a lot. She's probably my
yeah like
favorite new character. Well,
she's
new.
new, right? But she's my favorite game two character, and like there's no contest. You know, I adore Dina in that game, and so far I think she's pretty fantastic. I liked their scenes together early on a lot. Again, their chemistry, the flirting, and a little bit that I liked is when Dina first goes to see Ellie. And Ellie's in a room and she's like cleaning and working on her guns. That looked right out of the game when you're customizing your
Yeah,
weapons. I thought
she's
that
on
was
the.
cool.
There's a lot of little touches that I appreciated, but I
Yeah,
hope they're able to keep up.
yeah, there did you catch the bit in the supermarket when they see like the employee of the month sign?
Yes, it was the
And in the
dog.
game, yeah, it's the dog, and in the game that's how you get the code for the safe. I was like, are we gonna do the safe soon? Like we don't, but the Easter egg's still there.
No, that was cool.
So that's fun.
No, there's a lot of Easter eggs that I was surprised at because the first season is missing a lot of those smaller
Mhm.
things. And I mean the grocery store was straight out of the game.
Yeah, just the set design of that was phenomenal. And like you said, I really like the scenes with Joel and Dina when she first walks in the room and he says, "Hey, kiddo," you know, that's a good little fake out where it's like, "Oh, is it Ellie? Oh, it's not. It's this other girl he's talking to." And that dynamic of that relationship I like a lot, where it's like Ellie or Joel and Dina are both like they obviously like each other and they respect each other, but they're also using each other to talk about Ellie without talking to Ellie directly. You know, that's
Yeah, I
very
wonder
human
why.
and relatable. Yeah.
Oh, that was nice. And I liked her. I okay. In the moment, it was charming. Her like laughing at him going to therapy. Then I was like, wait a minute. Why is that funny? He's going to therapy. Why is it always a joke in things
Yeah, yeah, people get weird about therapy, even in 2025.
or
And but it was a very,
whatever year the show
whatever
takes
we're in
place?
now. Yeah. But it was also a very Joel moment to be like, hey, can you not tell anyone? But maybe part of why he's going to therapy is his guilt for what happened to Eugene. You know, that could be a factor. But also, Eugene and his wife are into weed. That's fun.
Yeah, I mean that's straight from the game.
Of the game. So yeah, we got the stalker set up much earlier on in the show than we do in the game, which again makes me think when we get to Seattle, we might do a Shambler episode. You know,
Okay,
that
here's the
could come up
$1 million
later.
question: do we destroy Jackson?
I okay, so clearly I think with Horde and everything, we are going to go a lot bigger than we did in the game. I don't think we're going to destroy Jackson, but I do think it's going to be kind of fucked up. And it's just going to add to Maria's motivation of, no, I can't be sending people out on revenge quests. I need people here rebuilding these fucking walls and taking care of our own. Uh, and, you know, now being a mother on top of that. So I don't think Jackson's going to be destroyed entirely, but we'll see.
Does Abby use the Horde as a cover to get in and get Joel?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know yet if that's going to be deliberate or if it's just going to be a perfect storm of things. Or like Abby could have some other plan to like take him out or capture him, and then somehow triggers the horde, and then that fucks everything up and chaos break. Like I could see it going either way. I liked the setup, and again, expanding on an idea we introduced in the show with the tendrils now getting into Jackson through the pipes, I thought was an interesting addition because like that's probably where something's gonna get set off and activated and draw even more in to
Does
whatever
that mean it
happens
can
in the
come up
next
the
episode.
toilet?
Yeah, possibly.
We're gonna see that in the
That
next
sucks.
episode. Somebody going to take a shit and just, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, Stephen King would do that.
Stephen King would do that. Trying to think of anything else big.
Yeah, like so I not to get back to it too long, but I get where you're coming from with Ellie. I still thought Bella's performance was fantastic, and we'll see where we are a couple episodes later if that angst is still bothering you, or if she mellows out, or where the
She has
trajectory of her
to,
character goes
because
over the season.
if this is the protagonist that I'm supposed to cheer for, we're fucked. Because she was insufferable in this episode.
Yeah, and I just didn't personally have that at all. And like I said, I like we predicted, we did get the New Year's Eve party in this episode, which I was fine with. It's lifted directly from the game. And again, at the end of that scene, when Joel steps in and she snaps at him, it's like, yeah, I don't need you. Stop trying to save me. That's why I'm mad at you. There's all these things she's trying to say that she's not.
So, okay,
That he's
I'm
just
glad
not
you
getting.
mentioned that. Because there's two small changes. One, Dinah and Jesse don't seem to be on the same page on if they're getting back together or not. Because Dina says, we're broken up for now.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's in the game. I could be wrong. It's a line of dialogue. But Jesse says, no, we're not getting back together. In the game, I'm pretty sure they're both on the same page. So either Ellie's a dick and just made a move on Dina even though she's still hung up on Jesse, or Dina's lying and they don't communicate that well
enough. Dina is clearly making the moves on Ellie in that scene, and Ellie doesn't know how to take it initially. But no, it's very similar to the game where Jesse said, like early in the game, a line you get is when Jesse is like, "Oh, you try to make a move on my girl. I'm just fucking with you. We're done. We're broken up. I don't care. It's fine." But I think there is a similar exchange with Dina in the game where she's like, where it's established, oh, these two have broken up and gotten back together
There
multiple
is,
times. And
but the difference is because I just played this sequence. Dina says we were stuck. We're not getting back together. In the show, Dina says we're broken up for now. Those are two very different things. The other, oh god, okay, this is a nitpick. I will admit it's a nitpick. But Joel is a crazy person in this episode. Because I never got the sense in the game that he was messing with her patrols. And in fact, we establish that before they even have a falling out, he learns, oh, I can trust her to go out on these patrols. Granted, this Ellie is a crazy person who does crazy person things, so I don't know if I can entirely blame him. But I don't know how I feel about him constantly meddling in her patrols and her fights. And that was a bit much.
He's doing that in the game. Because remember, in their final conversation, which takes place before the start of the game, Ellie tells Joel, "Stop hounding Jesse about my patrols." So Joel in the game is kind of on Jesse's ass about it. Like, nope, I don't want Ellie going there. I want her, safe. Blah blah blah. And then when the game starts, it's after that, and now Ellie and Dina are on their patrol on their own. So the impression I always got is, oh, like they probably haven't done this in a while, on her own. So that is a part of the game where Joel's kind of on Jesse's ass about what Ellie is and isn't doing, and Ellie says like, "Hey, back off, trust me." That is a part of their final conversation together. So I was fine with it.
No, that's fair. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, for sure. Also, during the New Year's Eve party, which again, just the set design, the costume design, cinematography, the music is lifted directly from the game. The dialogue's great, and we get a little cameo from Gustavo. Did you spot that? The composer.
I thought so. He's the guy playing the little guitar thingy.
Yep, he's got the big gray beard.
Yeah,
that's a fun cameo.
That was
good job, Gustavo. And I mean, Joel does physically assault what's his name, Seth, more strongly in the show than he does in the game.
Yeah, he fucking tackles him.
Yeah.
No,
I got it. Like, well, Joel, when he sees red, it's been established that he goes into violence mode, and yeah,
it was whatever. That was fine.
Totally about that.
And this is where kind of the dissonance comes in, because in that moment I was seeing Game Ellie, who is a mature adult who is having an issue with her parental figure, versus what the rest of the episode was showing, which was a completely different character. So I think the show is having trouble balancing that, where it wants to rip these things straight out of the game, but the stuff that they're ripping straight out of the game is a completely different characterization.
Yeah, but she's pretty angsty in that scene of the game. Like she does snap at him. Like she humiliates him publicly. She says, "I don't need your fucking help, Joel." Like she embarrasses him. That's a very angsty moment.
Yes, but
And
the difference is that we have seen this character. We know who she is. 'Cause that is later in the game, right? We come back to
that flashback comes much later in the game. Yeah.
so we've already got a stable characterization of Ellie by that time. And I don't mean to keep harping on this, but it's something that infects the entire episode for me. Is that Ellie is a mature adult who, yes, is giving Joel the silent treatment, who, yes, snaps at him, who, yes, has gone through a traumatic experience, but she's also responsible. She has friends. She does the patrols that she needs to. Whereas this Ellie, the only thing we have seen her do before this is harass people when she doesn't get what she wants. And then snap at Joel for protecting her from a bigot. Yes, I agree that he stepped in badly. But the difference is, I think, is context, where in that one, you already know what's happening, so you kind of feel bad for Joel and Ellie. If I was just watching this with no context to the game, I would hate Ellie and feel bad for Joel because Ellie is acting like a massive bitch. And I think that is a problem with the writing of this episode.
But I think they want you to be more on Joel's side until we get the full context later. And like I said, a lot of that angsty Ellie, like, it's just not on screen in the game. It's like, if you're looking at the flashbacks in chronological order, it's like her and Joel have their falling out, which, by the way, was her running off on her own, being very irresponsible, going to Salt Lake City and discovering the truth. That is a thing that happened in the game. We'll see if that happens in the same way in the show or not. But yeah, that is an angsty. We do
Knowing
get a
this,
little
Ellie,
bit of
she'll
that growth.
drag Dina with her.
I'm just saying that is a very angsty teenage Ellie thing that she does in the game. So she runs off to Salt Lake City, figures out the truth, has her falling out with Joel. Next flashback is like a year later with the New Year's Eve party where she snaps at him. A lot of that in between we just don't see in the game. So, like I said, in where we
Is the
start with Ellie,
guitar? Is the hotel not after Salt Lake?
when
When they have to clear out a hotel together, they're already not on
that
speaking terms.
that's when she's giving him the silent treatment, but that's before she finds out the whole truth about the Fireflies.
Okay, so that is before then.
Mhm.
I don't know. Even then, I have a hard time buying the Ellie and Last of Us. Either Last of Us would be that reckless. Yeah, she
I
sneaks
mean,
off,
she
but she
she
never.
gets
That's not
very
putting anyone
reckless.
else in danger.
That's fair. Again, I get where you're coming from in that, but also this is a point we've hammered home over and over again in both versions of the games in the show. It's she's immune, so she feels invincible. That is a big part of her recklessness. Like that comes up in the first game, big part of the second one too. It's like it's kind of a superpower that she exploits. And then with Dina, when she becomes so consumed with revenge for Joel, she gets to a point of like, yeah, I know we need to take Dina back to Jackson because she's getting sick, but I kind of want to finish this revenge quest. We're not there yet. So
I
yeah,
also, it's gonna be weird seeing this Dina like be sick because she's expecting a kid. I don't know what it is. None of them look 19. They all just look, except Jesse. Jesse looks older. Everybody else looks younger.
they're all actors in their 20s.
I
I
don't know
think
what it
that's just
is.
well, I think that's us being conditioned on growing up with movies and shows where 30-year-olds play high schoolers.
Yeah, I
So
mean
when you
that's
when you see an actual 19-year-old play a 19-year-old, you're like, oh, they look so young. This is weird.
yeah. Uh, we'll see. Because I didn't have
Uh,
that with Abby. I thought Abby was fine.
and in real life, I think she is a few years older than him. I think she is like in her mid 20s. So yeah, she looks
We'll
about the
see.
right age to me. We didn't get the snowball fight with Dina, so boo.
Well,
That was sad.
it's weird,
That would have been nice to see.
and this is where my brain explodes. Because in the timeline, we haven't hit where that snowball fight happens yet. We're
Mhm,
technically not even to the start of the game yet.
mhm.
But they've already done stuff from later in the game, like the grocery store. I've never seen an adaptation that both wants to adapt the game, but also not. It was like breaking my brain trying to put everything in order. I'm just like, if you're
Yeah,
gonna, can you at least do these in chronological order if you're gonna do this?
I'm so far I'm fine with the way we're shuffling things around, well, which is unexpected. I again, it'll be curious to see how that stuff plays out in the second episode, like how these characters are separated and what they're doing when the shit hits the fan. I'm very curious to see how that all plays out
We'll
next week.
see. Nothing. I can't say anything is egregiously bad. It just feels like change for the sake of change. And this is what got me frustrated with the first season. The template is already there. All you have to do is put them in order, have some connecting scenes, and film the damn thing. Why are we doing all of this? All this mixing and matching? It's already there.
Yeah, but the structure of that game is so complex. It is non-linear, and the fact that we are splitting it over multiple seasons. So
I'm
far,
not
I'm
saying
fine.
not do it. I'm not saying do it all jumbled like the game. Just take the flashbacks, put them in sequential order. You have an episode.
But some people would also argue, well, that's just change for the sake of change. That's not doing the because now you're changing it up. Just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, well, fuck those people.
And the Abby context we get up front, and you were fine with that. So far I'm with it.
Yeah, but I mean that's not jumbling anything. That's just an extra scene giving context. It's weird to put the grocery store where it is in the context that it's in. So I guess
I
she's
don't.
not gonna go out on patrol and get stuck in a blizzard.
I mean, I don't know.
Because if they do,
I
then what
haven't
was the
seen the
point of
next
doing the
episode.
grocery store when they did?
To see how they get back to Jackson and report on that stuff, like the stalker setup. That stuff wouldn't have
Oh,
played out
that's
the
the
way
other
it
thing
did.
they changed. Did you notice that they changed how patrols work? 'Cause in the game, they just have books that are out on each tower, and you sign them
Mhm.
as an all clear. Here it's like here's this flag, and it's just I can't point to anything that's bad. It's just I don't understand why this is this way. It's you've already established lore. Just use your fucking lore.
But but speaking about shuffling things around, we get this scene later when Ellie's giving Joel again the cold shoulder, and he comes, checks on her, checks out the guitar, and is like, "Oh, you need to fix these strings. I'll do that for you." And he leaves. Again, that's clearly a reference to that later flashback in the game when they're going to that music shop. So I imagine we're not going to get that here, or it'll be different. But what I like about that is in the show, Joel says like, I'll fix it," because it's very Joel. He's good at killing people. He's good at killing infected, and also he's good at fixing things. That's his dad DNA of he's a construction worker at heart, and there's some of that in the game too, where it's like he can't get through to Ellie. She has this wall up, and it's like, even though she says don't worry about it, he intervenes, says, "Nope, I'm taking the guitar. I am taking care of this for you. I'll get it back to you tomorrow." And of course we know, fuck, he's not gonna get the guitar back to her tomorrow,
I
because
mean, maybe I don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. Uh, and I think that is a
again,
big difference
changes
with
like that
Joel
I'm
that
fine with.
irritates me. In the game, Joel understands why she is upset. It's one of his
Mhm.
first lines of dialogue. She needed her immunity to mean something. This Joel is clueless, and I don't understand.
I didn't read it as clueless. I just saw him as kind of in denial, but there's also things, specific things he can't talk about with people, like with Gail. She says like, "You're lying to me. I know you're lying to me about something." So yeah, I didn't read it as clueless. I just have to see how that plays out over the course
But
of the
see,
season.
yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Like, he knows why she's pissed off, he just can't communicate about it properly.
Yeah,
And he doesn't know what to do.
Jareth, hello. Sounds like the problem with adapting things that may not need an adaptation in the first place. I think you can do an adaptation and just with how cinematic this already is, you don't need all of these changes. You just put it in the correct order for a television show and film it.
No, I'm more open minded to the changes. They don't bother me as much as they bother you. They're still sticking very close to it. Most of
Except
the
for
changes are pretty
characterization
minor.
and plot
Like,
points.
not really. Like again, the Ellie stuff. It's like, yeah, we meet her in a different context here
But
in the
even
new
if
game.
you
But we
go
already
by
talked
what
about
you were
that.
saying, where she is the way that she is at the beginning of the game, because her and Joel have already had that conversation, then by not having them had the conversation by the point that we are in the story, that is a fundamentally different Ellie. So why should I care about an Ellie that is not characterized as the Ellie that I like?
This is season 2. You know, we've already fleshed out this character. I understand where she's coming. Again, I get it. It's just not bothering me. I have to see how this goes. Again, I think Bella's performance is still just phenomenal.
And like I mentioned this earlier, so we've already done the grocery store, which is whatever. It's a cool set piece. I was glad it was there. But then you've immediately cut out. Can't do this. If you do the snowstorm, what are they going to do? Go to the grocery store again? They're not going to.
No,
Apparently, they're not going to get stuck in the bunker for underground. So
not
either
necessarily.
you're going to find some way to have Ellie be more involved, like she was pissed off at Joel and something she did leads to his death, or it's going to be the same thing but in a different setting. Which at that point, then what is the point of adapting the scene if you're not going to adapt the fucking scene?
But I think we are getting a lot more concept. What I like about this premiere is we are getting a lot more context and scenes with Joel up front than we got in the game. You know, that's what I like about doing the New Year's Eve party and all that stuff early on. So I'm cool with most of that. And as for episode 2, like where is Ellie gonna be? How are they gonna be separated? How does Abby? I don't know until we watch the episode.
That is a
I
good
can't really
good point.
until we
Keep
see
in
the
mind
episode.
for anyone who's watching, this is all just thoughts after episode one. I will have completely different thoughts come a week from now when we have
Yeah.
episode two. Um, I just it feels like they regret things that were done in the games, so they're changing them because they regret those, and I resist that.
Yeah, and that's just not how I'm reading it. Like I get it. There and in many ways I am getting what I wanted, where we're sort of taking this as an opportunity to tell this story differently, like getting more of the Abby context up front and not withholding that information for forever. You know, I'm cool with that. I like that we get a lot more Joel up front than we did in the game. Because the first time I played that game, it was like, fuck man, I wish we got a little bit more before that happened. And then of course the flashbacks happened and that kind of eased me over. The second game is such a weird experience where you just don't know how to feel about certain things until you have the whole 30-hour package. And I think the show is in a very similar boat.
But
But
the problem
the
is that they can't they can't do that exact same thing because this is going to be a story that's going to take probably 7 years to tell.
right. Well, I don't know about 7 years, but yeah, like it's gonna take a while.
Throwing a couple extra years on there, but say there's 2 years between seasons, and this takes from season 2 to season 4. That's 6 years,
Mm.
so not that crazy to think.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I like
how
the getting Joel up front. Just bleh. This is
and
the same problem Bates Motel had in the 5th season when they decided to do the Psycho story. Says Jared. I haven't seen that, so I
oh,
can't really
interesting.
comment on that. That is a different problem, though. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of this is guesswork.
Hmm.
Keep in mind, but that is taking a what? That movie's like what 90 minutes
Yeah.
and turning it into
2 hours
is that
tops.
a 22 episode season?
No, there were like I want to say those were like 13 or 15 episode long seasons, maybe less. But yeah, Bates Motel I
Okay,
never
10
finished, but I liked
episodes.
what I saw
So
there. Okay,
that
10
is
episodes.
taking a 90-minute to 2 hour movie and stretching it out to a 10-hour story. The Last of Us kind of has the opposite problem, where I'm going to use season 1 as an example, so I apologize for going back, but that one's already done, so it's easier to calculate. That is taking a 12-hour story, bare minimum, and trying to condense it down into a 9-hour television series. Especially with this season, because this is going to be a 7-hour. If every episode is an hour, they like to mess with runtimes and stuff. And I swear to God, if there's another episode like episodes 3 of the first season and this season, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
Calm down.
No, you do not get to slash.
Nasty.
You do not get to slash the episode count by 2, and then develop an entire episode to something that doesn't matter to the overall narrative. Anyway, this is only a 7-episode season, and we're already messing around with the timeline, which is fine. That's what I wanted. But then you're messing around with the timeline, and it feels like you're just doing that to either keep the game people guessing, because even you and I don't know what's going to come, which is annoying. Just that, me knowing what happens should be my reward for playing the game. I played the game. I am coming at this from a different point. Let the TV people be surprised. They're the ones coming in blind. Whatever. It's weird. I don't vibe with changing things for the sake of change.
I have a different relationship with adaptations than you do. I don't mind seeing a different spin on things. I still think it's very faithful and sticking pretty close. In terms of plot, it's still sticking closer to the source material than something like Walking Dead did.
Well, Walking Dead is a whole other monster.
Yeah, but I'm still feel very strongly that a couple big things that happened in the game are going to happen in the next episode, and that's fine. We'll see how we react to this thing week to week, and
yes, this is all the delusional ramblings about one episode. Don't worry, I'll probably have more delusional ramblings for the next one. Jareth says the problem was that they took things from Psycho and did it in a different way from seasons 1 through 4, and then repeat it in the 5th season. So it sounds like they had really bad prequelitis, where it's like, hey, remember this thing that they did? And this is all sounds. I haven't watched this show.
Yeah.
And then in the 5th season, when they are just doing Psycho, it's, well, we got to do this again.
Yeah, I'm aware of some of the big changes they make, but again, I need to finish that show. But also, what helps Bates Motel is that's not a literal prequel to Psycho. Like, that is a reboot in the first place. So,
but it's a reboot prequel.
Sure, the way like Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah.
Is.
Well,
and as we all know, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 went in very different directions.
Yes. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a little weird because of it being a movie, and then the second half is just Halloween. Whereas I think if they hadn't remade Psycho in that 5th season, I'm assuming, I haven't seen the show, there's probably an argument to be made, well, it is just a prequel to the Norman Bates movie, unless there's something that like counteracts or Norman Bates movie. God damn. The Alfred Hitchcock film, unless there's something in those first 4 seasons that contradicts it. Joe says it's still a great show. We will cover it one of these days.
I need to finish it. I liked what I saw.
I have to finish the story.
Yeah, and I know that final season. And I understand, Jareth. Like, I think I've heard divisive things about that final season, but I need to finish it. I'll get to it one day. But yeah, I think we hit all the major points we're going to talk about. Casting, Easter eggs.
I hope so. We've been at this for longer than the episode.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the scale and the production and the performances. I hope the next episode's great. That's a big one. I hope they nail, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's a weekly case-by-case basis. We will see how the rest of this pans out.
Yeah, I'm still on board. Nothing that they did so far has made me go, fuck this show.
And I get your reservations and hangups with Ellie's characterization here. I get it. We'll see where we're at in a few weeks.
We'll see. Yeah. No, for sure. That is the disclaimer. If and nobody takes anything else away from this video, it is my rant in this is purely first episode reactions. I will have completely different thoughts come a week from
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the final point I wanted to mention that I was missing in this episode that I kind of wish was here, but I'm also certain will be a flashback is just because we didn't really talk about it, is Joel giving Ellie the guitar. That was set up. I was kind of missing, and to
Yeah.
your point, could have seen a more kinder, sensitive Ellie for a scene like that scene I was missing in this episode. But I also know for a fact from the trailers that will be a flashback later.
You
Maybe
just want to
that'll
hear
up in the next
Pedro
episode.
sing.
So, yeah, I do want to hear Pedro sing. I also want to hear Bella sing, which I know we'll get. So that's definitely an example of a currently, yeah, I'm missing that scene and I wish it was here. Could be won over depending on how it's used as a flashback. I just know for sure that that's coming based on the trailers. That was the last big point I wanted to throw out there.
Well, and okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that because there's two things. One, he's gonna have to restring that then, if
Mhm.
because she's gonna have to play it.
Uh, Not necessary. Well, what I couldn't tell is when she does see Joel at the end, if that's his own personal guitar or if that's her guitar that he's just tuned and worked on. That I couldn't tell.
Couldn't tell. Yeah.
Uh, they'll probably make that clear in future episodes. But remember, whenever we see her play a guitar in the game, it's always like when she finds. It's always in the Seattle's. If you're talking like after Joel's
Oh
death.
yeah,
Like
because the music
she
shop.
finds one in a music shop and then finds one in the theater.
Theater.
The music shop one they're definitely keeping. Looking forward to that scene.
All right, trivia time, Robert. When Joel goes to the garage, and that's another thing that was weird is why is she living with him if she can't stand him?
She is well, she's living. That's the thing. She's still living there, but also kind of not. Like she's in the garage.
But
Like
why?
there is the separation. It's the same with the game.
No, in the game she has her own house.
No, she's living in a garage.
No, she's not.
She's living in a garage that I presume is Joel's garage. I'd have to go back and check, but yeah, that's what her little room is. That's what her little makeshift apartment is.
If it is a garage, then it's not Joel's garage. Because she
Yeah,
makes
but it's an
specifically that
extension.
she's going to Joel's house. She's living somewhere else. I always
You have
assumed
to
it was
go
her
back
own
and
like apartment.
no, it's her own little makeshift, but it's the same. But she's living in the same spot we see her in the opening. Both when they get to Jackson and then the 4-year time jump. Like she's living in the same
Are you sure?
space. Yeah. Again, the room's different because time has passed, but it is the same physical location.
Okay. While I Google this. Anyway, Ellie is listening to something. Do you know the name of the song and the artist?
I'm in the show.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it was Nirvana, but I didn't recognize the song.
So
That's
that is yes, that is Nirvana. That is Love Buzz off of their first record, Bleach, which is notable because A, it was an underground Seattle release, and B, that is the only Nirvana album to not have Dave Grohl on the drums
interesting.
because that was before they met him.
Yeah, I like
Okay,
Nirvana a lot. I'm just not an expert. Oh, go on.
okay. I want you to look at this. Hold on. Sorry, I copying pasting.
I could be wrong. I was just always under the impression that she was living in the same space in those two different points of time in Jackson in the game. That's how I always saw it.
Okay, so I think we're both right in a way.
Oh, also one last thing, and this is very important. There's an establishing shot of that little garage she's living in, and it's the same shot from the beginning of the game and after Joel's death. That's what was in my brain, where I was like, no, she's living in the same space because we get the same outside shot.
So you might be right about it being a garage, but I am right about it not being Joel's in that it's attached to Joel's house like it is in the show. So I found these two pictures. and it might be Joel's garage, but it is a separate building, which is probably what threw me off.
Okay. Okay.
So that might be a garage. It's just the way it plays. I thought that was her own because
Okay.
it's got a bathroom and everything, and you don't typically see bathrooms in garages.
Yeah, but also I don't know Wyoming. I don't know their ways.
Who knows?
But also I need to go back and play that scene uh after Joel's death when you're walking to his house. I just don't remember if you can see
Yeah,
her space like in that event. I just don't remember. But okay, we mystery solved kind of.
mystery solved, kind of. We're both right and we're both
See you
wrong.
next week. Sure.
All right,
I agree.
Robert, is there anything else that you would like to discuss in this over an hour long discussion of one episode of television?
It's fine. It's the premiere one. I had a good time.
Yeah,
Like discussing the show. And
it's still
once
a
again,
7
like
out of 10.
you gave it a 7, I give it an 8. Like we're not that far apart. I hope next episode's great. We'll see how it pans out.
10 out of
But
10,
I'm
or
looking
I'm
forward.
quitting the show. I'm kidding.
Thank you, Jareth, for watching. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you, everybody. We will. I will be back tomorrow night with some more Last of Us Part 2. I'm going to try to get back to my grounded permadeath run. Yay. And then we will be back with Resident
Good
Evil
luck.
3 on Thursday. And then Friday is Manhunter.